Hey guys, I'm going to do a video real quick. This one for UFC Apex 74. Originally, we were going to cover 5 fights on the card, but now it's cut down to 3, seeing as Guran Kutateladze and Jamie Malarkey's fight got canceled, along with Jim Miller and Jared Gordon's fight getting canceled as well. So we've only got 3 to go over in this video, so we're going to get right into it. Starting off with Tim Elliott versus Victor Altamirano. Victor's got 2 back-to-back wins coming into this fight. He's got 2 knockouts, 4 subs, and 6 decisions on his record. But from what I've noticed in his fights, he does tend to get a little reckless at times. He likes to close the distance very quickly, but he will put himself in big moments of danger in order to land a couple shots on his opponent. Now, as for Tim Elliott, he's coming off of a win in his last fight where he was a big underdog against Tagir Ulanbekov. He's very well-rounded. In his career, he's got 3 knockouts, 6 submissions, and 9 decisions. He's been here in the UFC for quite a while, and he's had a mixed bag of success and failure. But overall, from what I've seen, he has the capability to handle himself in all situations, whether it's on the feet, in the clinch, on the ground, it doesn't matter. But I think on the ground is where he's going to have the biggest threat to Victor Altamirano, because if you look back at Victor's record, his pro record only says he's been submitted 1 time, but his amateur record shows he's been submitted 3 more times, all to the same choke, which was a rear naked choke. And we know Tim Elliott's very good at grabbing the neck. But you really have to question the mentality and the frustration that Tim Elliott's coming into this fight with. He is very frustrated with his life due to personal issues that I'm not going to get into because it's not our business. But he has said he's coming into this fight looking to take out all of his frustration, and he's coming for a finish, more specifically a knockout. But he did make sure to point out that more importantly, he's going in there to do some wild shit. That's what he said himself. And I feel like I'm going to have to trust Tim Elliott on this. I think he's going to come into this fight very aggressive, and I think Victor Altamirano does tend to struggle against a high-pace, high-pressure fighter, and Tim Elliott seems like that's the game plan for him. And on top of that, he's got more experience than Victor does, and I think he's going to have the big edge in this fight, so I'm going to be taking Tim Elliott. Now, on to the co-main event. We've got Alex Caceres against Daniel Pineda. Now, this one, in my opinion, is going to be a very interesting fight. Daniel Pineda has won every single fight that he's had by finish. 9 knockouts, 19 submissions. He's a big threat on the ground when it comes to submissions. When he shoots for takedowns, he definitely commits to it. He's not going to just let up. And we've seen Alex Caceres mostly struggle against guys who can out-wrestle him. And Pineda also has a wrestling background, so that's also going to work in his favor. Now, in my opinion, I think Daniel Pineda holding him up against the cage is going to be his biggest threat to Caceres. I think Caceres does tend to have a lot of struggle when he's being held up against the cage. But one thing I have noticed in a lot of Daniel Pineda's fights is he does tend to drop his hands a lot, especially after landing a couple shots, or at least attempting to. He does tend to drop his hands. I mean, there's several fights that he's had inside of the UFC where you will hear his coaches remind him to pick his hands up after he throws a combo. And I just don't think you can do that against Alex Caceres. So Alex, I think, is going to have the stand-up advantage because we have seen Pineda struggle on the feet against certain opponents. Now, Alex Caceres recently has had somewhat of a career resurgence. He won his last fight against Julian Erosa, but right before that lost to Sadiq Youssef. But before that was a 5-fight winning streak. And Alex is very susceptible to subs, so I think he's definitely not going to want to be on the ground in this fight. But at the same time, Alex Caceres has always had an underrated jiu-jitsu game along with a pretty well takedown defense to go with it. And normally, whenever he gets taken down, he will resort to attempting subs whenever it comes to him being on bottom especially. And Caceres is also going to have the size advantage, and I think Pineda is going to struggle with that on the feet. Caceres is 3 inches taller with a 3.5-inch reach advantage in this one. And just like Tim Elliott, Caceres has been here for a long time. He's a veteran of the sport. You know, he may not have the most impressive record, but he does have some very impressive fighting skills. And with the momentum that he's accrued recently, having won 6 of his last 7 fights, I think he's going to carry that momentum into this fight and put on a show that will probably be unexpected to most of the viewers that are going to watch, due to the fact that Caceres is such a good stand-up fighter, and we've seen Pineda struggle in the stand-up department against most of his opponents. So for this one, I'm predicting an upset victory for Alex Caceres. And on to the main event. This is the first time that we've gotten a non-title fight UFC flyweight bout as the main event of any card since 2017. But this one's going to be a crazy fight, I think. We've got Kai Kara-France against Amir Albazi. Amir Albazi so far undefeated inside of the UFC with a 4-0 record. He is only 16-1 inside of his whole career. He's got 6 KOs, 8 subs, and 2 decisions. I think he's going to be a very dangerous submission threat, especially to Kaikar France, who we've seen isn't quite the most well-versed in the grappling department. But he's very well-rounded, both on the feet and on the ground. He does like to push a very tough pace. He will close the distance and get really close and up in your face, but whenever he does close the distance, he'll land his shots and get back real quick. And Kaikar France, we know, is very fast, but I think this one's going to turn into quite a brawl, given the fact that that's kind of how Kaikar France likes his fights. He likes to put himself in the fire. He likes to be in danger and land those big shots. Kaikar France is coming off of a loss to the current flyweight champion, Brandon Moreno. Before that, he was beating guys like Askar Askarov, Cody Garbrandt, Rogerio Bontorin, and the list goes on and on. He did have some struggle against other guys such as Brandon Royval, and once again against Brandon Moreno. But this fight is very closely contested on the feet. I think Amir Albazi has a bigger chance to win it than most people are probably thinking. Now, I know the betting odds are pretty dead even on this fight, but Kaikar France does have a problem where he can get ahead of himself and get a bit too aggressive, and that puts him in danger quite a bit. And that's normally where we'll see him get caught in his previous losses. He likes to get into that slugfest, kind of like Gaethje, kind of like Dan Hooker. He does like to stand in the pocket and trade, and I just wouldn't advise that against a guy like Amir Albazi, who is such a big threat in just about every aspect of the game, and also has the ability to get knockouts as well. Both have big power in their hands. Kaikar France is very fast, but I'm not sure if he'll be able to fight smart enough to beat Amir Albazi. I think on the feet, Amir's going to surprise him with the amount of skill that he has on the feet. And I think on the ground, Amir's going to have a big advantage there. And I know Kaikar France does train a lot in being able to avoid takedowns and being able to defend himself properly on the ground whenever he does get taken down. But I feel like Amir Albazi is just so many steps ahead of him on the ground. I don't know if that's going to make a difference in this fight, especially because Amir Albazi has a good habit of managing to shoot for takedowns in the most unpredictable of positions. And I think that's probably going to be the game plan with Amir Albazi, but I don't think he'll have any problem with standing up with Kaikar France. And for the past week, I have been struggling and going back and forth as to whether I should pick Kaikar France or Amir Albazi. And I think in the past 2 days or so, I've started to lean more towards Amir Albazi winning this fight. So for this one, I'm going to be taking Amir Albazi. And to recap, I'm taking Tim Elliott, Alex Caceres, and Amir Albazi. And it looks like that's all I got for y'all. Hit like, subscribe, and all that.